We're about now, yeah, less than 2 weeks from the first game, and we're just a little over a week to go. How has the offense progressed, and what do you like so far most? I mean, you've got a lot of returning guys and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, it's exciting when you have a lot of guys coming back because, I always refer to them as coaches. We have our 5 staff members back who know the offense. This was a new staff also last year, right? So we're all coming back, and we've got all the answers in terms of how to install the offense and do the things that we need to do. But we've also got 35, 36 additional guys that know the system. So they can turn around in line right now and talk to the young guys that don't know anything about how the drill is done, what the expectations are. And we got a lot of guys out there coaching. I mean, I actually tweeted something today about one of our defensive linemen, Tamari, was out there coaching 2 real young D linemen. And I think that's kind of where our program is right now. So we're ahead of the game mentally, and we're trying to close the gap on the physical end of it because of the lack of spring ball.
All right, let's move over to Andrew Jones. Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Mac has been pretty upfront about how you guys want to you'd like to have 10 offensive linemen, but certainly 8 would be a doable goal, but that you haven't quite gotten there yet. He gives us the 6 names that are pretty obvious, the guys that are in there, and his 7th being Jonathan Adorno. How much of a concern is it that you might not be able to get to the 8th or 9th offensive lineman?
Well, from a numbers standpoint, this is where we were last year. We wanted 8. We didn't have 8. Right now we have 6 that we love. We have a 7th that we think is going to be pretty good. And we have 2 guys, maybe 3 right now that are really working to try to get to be that 8th guy. So we've got another, 8, 9 days before we get to the game. I think right now if we went in the game tomorrow, there's 7 that we feel good about. And
how much does it help that a guy like Josh Azudu can play 4 spots essentially?
Well, it helps a lot. You just took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say we have one guy that really is 2 people for us because he can play guard or tackle anywhere on the offensive line. So he gives us some flexibility with regards to being able to spell different guys and not have a drop-off with an offensive position.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, CL Brown, you're up next.
Yes, Coach. I was curious from your perspective, how do you feel like Sam is handling the expectations that have kind of built up heading into this season?
He's handling them fine. I don't really think the adversity stuff, the attention stuff, the media stuff is really an issue for him. He has some personal goals that he set for himself, and some of them are short term with North Carolina football this year, and then a little bit more long term with what he wants to do here as a career overall, and then maybe even at the next level. But all of that stuff, he is a little bit more mature than his age would lead you to believe, because he's able to understand that today and the investment in the work that he does today is the best investment he can make for any of that stuff down the road. And I don't really think that that's changed with him at all. So he stays focused on the work at hand, and I don't think he's really affected by the rest of it.
And is there anyone who so far has a leg up on kind of securing or being that 3rd running back on the depth chart for you?
No, not yet. DJ has really performed well in certain days. British just had a great day yesterday. Elijah's done some things. He's got some quicks, and it does a good job in the running game. So the good thing is, there's a room full of talent at the running back position, and Coach Gillespie and our staff will just have to do a good job of, and it may wind up being who's number 3 by situation. Better pass catcher, the better blocker, the better runner. It may wind up coming down to who do we need for that particular situation in the game. So we'll just have to wait and see there.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, let's go over to Greg Barnes. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Circling back to the offensive line, how detrimental was it not having spring ball for those guys in terms of chemistry and for some maybe some of the younger guys that you needed to step up for them to kind of get their feet wet more?
You know what, Greg? I think that at the O-line position, that's probably where it's affected any team the most. You know, there's no other singular unit in football that depends more on the overall rhythm that the unit has in the offensive line. And so there were a lot of reps we wanted to get Adorno and some of the other younger offensive linemen in, and it would have given us an opportunity to dual train some of our veterans who now maybe be able to handle that mentally, whereas last year they may not have. And you didn't get those reps. So Coach Searles did what we all did. We got everybody ahead of the ball game mentally, and we took advantage of all of our walkthroughs. And I think the focus in my mind right now with regards to scripting every practice is all more focused on helping the O-line develop so we have them where we want them, more so maybe than any other position. So our practices right now, in my mind, from a coordinator standpoint, are definitely O-line driven at this point because we lost the physicality in spring ball.
And is there another layer there with kind of what's going on with COVID in terms of you not knowing maybe 1 week you may not have a couple of these guys, trying to get even more of them prepared?
No, I don't know that that's as much of a factor anymore. I think we're in a place right now, a good place right now. Our culture here for the whole team is we all know we're doing the right things. We're in a good bubble. We're taking care of each other. We're doing the things we need to do. We haven't had COVID issues in a while. And I think we feel like we're healthy. And if we keep doing what we're doing correctly, we're going to stay healthy. And it really, this past week, Greg, honestly, has felt like nothing but just football. It's probably been the first week where I don't know. Coach Brown will address everything that needs to be addressed. But we've come out here and it's been all football for the last week or so. And that it feels good to get back to some sort of normalcy, I think.
Okay. I had one more. A month ago, you had no idea you were going to be playing Syracuse or Charlotte. And I know you typically have the off season to prepare for some of these early games. Factor that in with you running a training camp. How challenging is that with the scouting process?
I think for the guys, it's not going to be a huge challenge because the way we install the offense, you know, we're going to work all the pressures. We're going to work all the coverages. We're going to work all the fronts. So there isn't too much that we see out there that is going to be drastically different. I say that, and Syracuse does do some unique things, so we have been able to focus in on those things more recently. But that's where we really gained an advantage. We've taken advantage of the time we had over the pandemic to really get ahead as much as we could mentally. And now we're kind of practicing what we've been working on mentally out here. So I don't think that part is an issue. It certainly is a little bit more of a challenge with the shorter schedule with regards to knowing who we're playing. So we are crash coursing Syracuse right now, and that's really our only focus. We're ready for next Saturday.
Thanks, Phil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next up, Ross Martin.
Hey, Coach, we know about Diami, Daz, and Bo. What can you kind of tell us with the group behind them, Antonio Green, or Antoine Green, Rontavious Groves, even Josh Downs, Emory Simmons, the depth at wide receiver, how they progress, and what do you expect from those guys?
Well, what you just said, the depth at wide receiver is probably the thing that excites us the most with that position. Because even when we run the football, and we do that quite often, we're still running routes a lot of the time. And so that's a little bit more mileage during the course of a game and during the course of practice. And it's difficult when you only have 3 guys. So to have 7, 8 guys right now in that room that we would feel comfortable with, there's a pecking order there. I don't know that we're playing somebody ahead of De'Ami Brown, but if we have to go to our backup wide receiver on either side, we feel good about their execution. If we've got to go to, the 3rd or 4th slot, we feel good about their execution. So sometimes the backup slot at 100% in terms of energy is better than the starter at 80%. And so the depth in the wide receiver room lends to helping our tempo. It lends to us being able to cover a lot of ground and chase space like we do. And it's going to be a little bit easier to keep our guys fresh this year because guys like Emery Simmons and some of the young guys have established themselves as people who can play for us on Saturday.
And Josh Downs, I mean, what has he done in camp that's been impressive? I mean, people have raved about him. Michael Carter said he runs unbelievable routes and super quick.
So Josh has obviously been coached in high school. He's done some work. He's come in a little bit more polished maybe than the typical freshman. He's a little bit sharper with routes. From an athletic standpoint, he's a great change of direction slot receiver. He's got great vertical speed. He catches the ball really well. So, the curve for him right now is mental, just learning the system. He's adjusting to getting used to the tempo that we're in. To run a deep ball and to have to come back and run another one without coming out is new to some of the young guys. So, again, the learning curve for him more is on the physical end because he did such a great job of preparing himself mentally during the pandemic period.
Yeah, and quickly, Mac Brown spoke about Garrett Walston, I think, on Monday. How do you expect to use the tight end this year, and what does Garrett Walston do, and how do you see him kind of fitting into the offense in 2020?
So Garrett is what you would hope. He's a year better at his position, and so we feel more confident with him in the box. He's moving better this year even than he did last year. He might be the best hands or close to one of the top guys with regards to having the best hands on the team. We've utilized him more. His role is more diverse this year because what he can do for us this year is more diverse. So he's had a great camp. We're excited about him. And then you have the emergence of a younger tight end in Kamari Morales, who has been a physical presence in the box and can do enough outside. So we like those two in that room right now. And then the younger guys all have potential, and they also have time to develop.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's back over to Andrew Jones. Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, going back to the O-line, when William Barnes arrived as a true freshman, he played a lot early, then got hurt, and he's kind of been battling that and a couple other things really since then. Where do things stand with him right now? And if you guys play the game Saturday, is he ready to maybe help in a pinch or more?
Well, William is one of those three that I was referring to when I said we're trying to pull or get out of one more out of these three guys, a lineman that kind of matches Coach Cyril's standard for getting on the field on Saturday. So he and two others are really, they're battling right now, not necessarily with each other, but just to get to a point where they can execute at a high enough level that we're confident enough to put him out on the field on Saturday. So he has been he's had a nagging little back issue, but for the most part, I think he's back now and he's working, and we've got 8 or 9 days to see what we can do with William.
One other quick question over to backup quarterback. Max said earlier this week, I guess it was, that you're not sure if either Jace or Jacoby are ready for that third series that he's discussed with us a couple of times. Where do both of those guys stand, and what do you like? What's kind of the high-end thing about both Jace and Jacoby?
Well, I will say I've been blessed. I showed up here with two true freshmen and a freshman last year, and the competition went down to the wire before we named Sam. And this year I've got Jace's back, and he's doing well in camp. Jacoby is here, and he kind of got robbed of a spring ball physically, but mentally he's been able to work it and study and grind. And so he's further back on the learning curve, obviously, than Sam and Jace. What do I like about the two of them? I like the depth of our room. I think we feel like we can do more with Sam Howell now that I have two solid guys behind him, as opposed to the situation we were in last year, where we got down to Vincent Amendola, and that was the only other guy in the quarterback room. So Jace has really done a good job athletically, and he's been able to make some more progressive decisions with regards to things that are going on in the field because he brings some of that experience from last year. And then, on Jacoby's end, Jacoby is still learning mentally. I think we're going to have a package for both of them, and it's going to be the plays that are in the game plan for Syracuse that those two execute well. And I'd say the thing that Jacoby's doing right now is he's an athlete himself. He's a really good runner. and he's done a fantastic job throwing the football in camp.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to wrap up today with CL Brown. CL, go ahead.
Coach, given Sam's handle of the offense and all of the weapons that you have in the skill positions, what's your philosophy on kind of expanding, the things how many different things you can do in offense as opposed to just doing all the things you do now well and just, kind of the repetition of what you do well? How do you balance whether you're going to throw some more wrinkles in, Adam, or just kind of stick to what you do well?
See, this is what I would say. This is my favorite year. Whenever you go to a new place, the second year is my favorite year because I have to battle personally just with myself during the year in the first season. Because I've been through this so many times, this process of installing the offense and getting our guys where they need to be instinctive. I'm a huge believer of getting them to that point. And so we'll push the limit to the saturation point the first year, and then we're going to stop it there, and we're going to get really, really good at what we do. Last year, we were probably more limited than I'm used to being in the first season because of the injury situation in the quarterback room. This year is a lot of fun, and I smile when I think about it because we have been able to expand because we have more depth. We've been able to expand because we have more depth at quarterback. We've been able to expand because all these veterans coming back can handle the little wrinkles. So I think the full playbook is open this year. And this year is what you should see out of our offense for the rest of the time now because it's in. And so the veterans just come back and teach the freshmen. We're never going to go through that first initial season anymore. So I like where we are right now, and it's just about us going out and executing, what we know we can do against Syracuse. I'm excited about seeing this team this year.